Hi everyone, this is Jubes 2011, aka Manowizar. Bear with me today because I have allergies. But today I'm going to be reading the first chapter of Fear by Eliza Scottoline. And then I'm going to be playing some music that I'm going to be recommending to you, including recommend the book that I'm about to read, because it's a good book. And if you want, you can download this episode, okay? But yeah, another thing, I might be a little rusty because it's been a while since I've read to anyone. So, bear with me. Okay. Surprise! Everyone shouted as Mary D'Annunzio opened the door to the conference room. The office was throwing her a baby shower, and she almost burst into tears of joy. Pregnancy had boosted her emotions past normal American levels, and for the past 7 months, she had been a walking ball of estrogen. "Aw, you guys!" Mary wiped her eyes while they all rushed over. "Were you surprised?" Judy Carrier, her best friend, gave her a big hug. "Or did you guess?" Anne Murphy, the firm's gorgeous fashionista, enveloped Mary in a perfumed cloud. "D'Annunzio, you couldn't have been surprised, could you?" called out Benny Rosato, Mary's partner and former boss. Benny stood at a distance, though, because group hugs were against her religion. Folding her arms in her characteristic khaki suit, unruly blonde top knot, and vaguely ironic smile. "Where did you think we all were?" "I don't know." Mary sniffled happily. "I figured I was the first one in this morning." "You, huh?" Lou Jacobs laughed, giving her a hug. Bald and nearing 70 years old, Lou was a former cop who worked as their investigator. He was trim, fit, and perennially tan from weekend fishing in Margate. His eyes were a flinty gray blue with a nose like a bill of a seagull. "Congrats, Mary!" Marshall Trow, their receptionist, smiled from ear to ear. "Congratulations, Mary." John Foxman gave her a stiff hug, and Mary hugged him back warmly. She had thought he was too preppy when they first met, but he proved his mettle on one of her important cases. "You guys went to so much trouble." Mary took in the scene. Pink and blue streamers hung from the ceiling, obscuring Benny's beloved Eakins, rolling prints, and the view of the Philadelphia skyline. Stacks of trial exhibits had been pushed away aside to make room for the pink and blue frosted cupcakes. A pile of gaily wrapped gifts and paper plates and cups. "It's no trouble," Judy waved her off with a grin. "We wanted to," added Anne. Benny snorted. "D'Annunzio, I agree with you, but they said we had to." She gestured to Mary into a seat at the head of the table, usually hers. "Now sit down and have a cupcake so we can get back to work." "Got it." Mary waddled to the seat. "Sit down, everyone, please. I can't take the guilt if you're standing. Benny, give us a toast." Judy sat down, reached for a pink cupcake, and taking a typically big bite. "Okay." Benny raised her "I can smell fear" mug. "Everybody join me. Get a drink." Mary felt her eyes well up again. She loved them, and as thrilled as she was about the baby. She would miss them during her maternity leave. And seeing Bernie standing proudly, her mug raised, made Mary flash on the arc of their long relationship. Mary had joined the law firm as an insecure associate that had grown into a somewhat less insecure named partner, which was progress. To Mary D'Annunzio, Benny's expression softened. I speak for everyone at Rosato and D'Annunzio when I say that we wish you, Anthony, and your new baby all the happiness in the world. But we can't wait until you come back to work. Hear, hear, Lou called out, and everybody cheered, raising their cups. To Mary, to the baby, to the new lawyer. Thank you. Mary smiled, taking a sip of seltzer, which would probably make her gassy. These days she could barely walk for having to hold her fencer closed. At home she let it rip, and her husband Anthony wasn't allowed to complain. Her breasts had grown to gargantuan proportions, and he had to take the bad with the good. Suddenly there was a noise outside the conference room, and a man in a sport coat arrived at the threshold. Excuse me, he said. There was nobody at the reception desk. I have hand deliveries for Benny Rosato, Mary D'Annunzio, and Judy Carrier. That's me, Benny said, rising and walking around the table. I'm Judy. Judy stood up and went over. I'm Mary, but hang on. Mary got up slowly. Okay, here we go. The man handed Judy, Mary, and Benny each a thick manila envelope. I'm with AMG Process Servers. You've been served. Benny blinked. You mean a client of ours has been served? No, you've been served. Bye. The man left with a surprised marshal escorting him out. What? Mary asked aghast. She'd never been sued in her life. She'd never even colored outside of the lines. Let me see. Benny had torn open the envelope and was already reading the papers with a deepening smile. I meant frown. It's a copy of a complaint that was just filed with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. We're being sued as a firm and individually as partners. Who could be suing you guys? Anne rose quickly, crossing to read the papers. Lou snorted, getting up. Who would be crazy enough? And for what? John asked, indignant, crossing the room to read over Benny's shoulder. Benny read through the papers. We're being sued for the reverse sex discrimination. Mary read over Benny's shoulder aghast. The plaintiffs are 3 male lawyers who allege they applied for jobs and weren't hired because they're men. Are you serious? Judy recoiled. We're being sued? Lou asked, what's the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission? Benny kept reading the complaint. It's an agency that enforces state law prohibiting discrimination on the basis of gender and for other reasons. The federal analog Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act. Judy looked over at Lou. The Pennsylvania Human Rights Relations Act covers smaller employers like us. This is the beginning of a lawsuit because you have to file a complaint with the commission before you can go to court. Here, I'll read the allegations. Benny cleared her throat. The law firm of Rosado and D'Annunzio are unlawfully founded on a women's-only law firm. On many occasions, its principals, Benny Rosado, Mary D'Annunzio, and Judy Carrier have even admitted as such, stating in interviews that their law firm is comprised of all women and is all female. Mary felt a wave of nausea, only partly pregnancy related. We said that because reporters would ask us if we were all female. That doesn't mean it's a job requirement. Who are these plaintiffs? Judy's fair skin flushed with emotion, turning almost as pink as her hair. When did we fail to hire them? Besides, we're not an all-female law firm anymore. We have John now. Doesn't he count? Yeah, right. And gestured to John. You hired him yourself, right, Judy? Yes, totally. Judy nodded emphatic. Benny, that disproves their case right there, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. Benny looked over, frowning. Point of law, the fact that a company hired a man doesn't prove that it didn't discriminate against other male plaintiffs. Secondly, the fact that we don't interview more widely doesn't cut in our favor. Failing to interview widely tends to perpetuate discriminatory employment practices. In an all-male firm, it would be perpetuate an old boy network, like an old girl network. Mary felt defensive. Give me a break. We don't discriminate against men. This suit doesn't have any merit. These guys have a lot of nerve because they're men. Judy shot back, but nobody laughed. Okay, not allowed to joke anymore. Benny, who are the plaintiffs? Their names are Michael Battle, Graham Maiden, and Stephen McManus. Corporate litigators. They allege they were more than qualified to be associates. They applied and were rejected. It says we interviewed one McManus. Benny looked up puzzled. Who interviewed McManus? I did, John answered. I thought we needed an associate to help London Technologies. I asked Anne if I could hire somebody. Remember Anne? Yes, Anne nodded, frowning. You were supposed to interview the candidates, make a recommendation to me, and I'd run up to Benny. Okay, so I put an ad online, and the Intelligencer went through the resumes and interviewed a bunch of candidates, including one of these three, the plaintiffs. John looked nonplussed, turning to Benny. I liked Steve McManus and recommended to Annie that we hire him. She said no, and told me to go back to the drawing board. Instead, I hired a contract lawyer because I didn't have time to start the whole process over again. Benny faced Anne. Why didn't you want to hire McManus? Did you interview him? No. Anne thought for a minute, a worried crease marking her perfect features. I looked at the resume and I didn't like it. He didn't seem to have any personality. I didn't think he would be a good fit. Benny arched an eyebrow. What did you mean by good fit? He seemed really boring, like too quiet. None of us is, and that's why this is a fun place to work. He didn't strike me as the kind of person we need, completely regardless of his gender. And straightened. I can totally defend my decision. Under the law, we can decide not to hire someone for any reason or even no reason, as long as it's not discriminatory. Correct. Benny returned her attention to the complaint. Foxman, you're mentioned here too. I am? John swallowed hard, and Mary noticed he suddenly seemed nervous, which was unusual because not much ruffled his patrician cool. He was good-looking with intelligent blue eyes behind rimless glasses, a small nose, and precisely layered reddish hair. Tall and perennially well-dressed, he always looked to Mary as if he'd been born in a reptile. But she could see his mouth go suddenly dry. Benny cleared her throat again. Let me read aloud. Plaintiff Stephen McManus was interviewed by Associate John Foxman in his office at Rosado and D'Annunzio. During the interview, Foxman told Plaintiff McManus that he himself felt out of place at Rosado and D'Annunzio because he was a male. Benny looked up slowly, appalled. Did you say that, Foxman? Mary sensed the answer. John tended to make his opinions known, and she remembered that on the last case they had worked together, he had spoken imprudently to the media. In other circumstances, she would have termed it mansplaining, but not today. Whoa, Judy grimaced at John. Did you really say that? John, do you really think that? Anne's lovely green eyes focused on him, awaiting his answer, as was Lou. John swallowed visibly, his Adam's apple getting stuck on his cutaway collar. I said that, Mary moaned inwardly, and everyone fell silent. A pink streamer fluttered from the ceiling to the carpet. Foxman, Benny controlled her tone. You said that to an interviewer? Explain. John went ashen-faced. I'm the only male lawyer. If we're being honest, I do feel that way sometimes. Like when? Judy and Anne interrupted in outraged unison. John gestured vaguely at the streamers. For starters, at a baby shower. Judy threw up her hands. John, I feel out of place at a baby shower, but I do feel out of place here at times. John, really? Judy blurted out. You're not out of place here. You're one of us, whether you're a man or a woman. You know that. Bummer. Anne was shaking her head, her glossy red hair shining. You never said anything like that to me. Mary could see that John felt terrible, but now they were on the legal hook. Litigation was a nightmare, especially when you were on the received end, and it was the last thing she needed. In a difficult pregnancy, she tried not to throw up. Benny raised a hand. Foxman, I asked you to explain the circumstances in which you made this statement to an interviewee. John stiffened. Well, during the interview, I guess McManus and I got to talking. He was a nice guy. I felt we had a rapport. That's why I wanted to hire him. I might have admitted that I felt out of place here sometimes as a guy. Benny squared her shoulders. Foxman, I'm disappointed. If you brought it to me, we could have addressed it. Instead, you chose to make your views known to an outsider who's using it against us in a baseless lawsuit. John swallowed, mortified. It was a mistake. No, it was treason. John flinched. Benny, I'm sorry. Do you want me to resign? I don't want to, but I will if you want me to. And add fuel to the plaintiff's fire? No. Benny glared at him, creating the most awkward moment in legal history. Where do you think those resumes would be? Or a copy of the ad that we ran? Do you have them? Yes, somewhere. Find their resumes and other communications you had with them. Emails, texts, phone calls, whatever. Prepare a chronology so we understand exactly what happened. We have to know what they know. Benny glanced at Anne. Murphy, I'm tasking you with preventing this from happening again. We have to institute a formalized way of dealing with interviewees from now on. We can't do it by the seat of our pants anymore. Please coordinate with Marshall. Set up a system and let us know your recommendation. We need to implement it immediately. Will do, said Anne quickly. Judy turned to Benny, who represents the plaintiffs. Hold on, let me see. Benny flipped through the complaint, then looked up. Guess who, D'Annunzio? Tell me. Mary hated guessing games. From before she was on progesterone, which left her feeling dumber than usual. It's your mortal enemy. I don't have any enemies. Judy smiled. Truth. She's universally beloved. Benny met Mary's troubled gaze. You beat him last time, and he's back with a vengeance. Nick Machiavelli. Oh, no. Mary's heart sank affectionately. Her gorge rose. The real Niccolo Machiavelli had thought it was better to be feared than loved. His alleged descendant, South Philly lawyer Nick Machiavelli, followed suit. He was feared, not loved, while Mary was loved, not feared. She knew Machiavelli would come back for an ultimate lawyer battle, like a fight between good and evil with billable hours. Benny closed the complaint. Folks, the party's over. Sorry, Mary. Open your presents later. We have to talk about this lawsuit. and everybody has to clear the room except for the 3 partners. I need a wastebasket, Mary said, looking around. If you like the book so far, well, I highly recommend that you read it. Or you could stay tuned to this podcast for me to read chapter 2 tomorrow. I'm going to play and recommend some music now. Just bear with me here. This is my first podcast ever anyway. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, first I'm going to play a song from Elton John's album Rocket Man number 1. I'm gonna play Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I highly recommend the album. Or you could stay tuned to my podcast and listen to it. Okay, that was Yellow Brick Road from Elton John's number 1 Rocket Man album. Next, I'll be playing Benny and the Jets by Elton John, the same album. And that was Benny and the Jets by Elton John. Next, I will be playing Let's Go by Def Leppard. Okay, next, I will be playing Def Leppard's Dangerous from the album Def Leppard. You know, with D-E-F and then Leopard. Okay, here goes. Alright, that was Dangerous by Def Leppard from the Def Leppard album. Wow, doesn't that music make you want to dance? Sure made me want to sing and dance to it. Yeah, that was fun. Next up, I'm going to be playing Thunderstruck by AC/DC live album. Here goes. I highly recommend it. Next, I'm going to be playing Shoot to Thrill. Woo, wasn't that fun? If you like these albums that I've played so far, keep listening to the podcast and download the stream, or you can buy the CD or do both. Listen to my podcast and download it, or do that while you also listen to the CD. Woo! Shoot to Thrill and Thunderstruck by AC/DC by their AC/DC live album. Woo! Man, that made me want to dance. I almost sung in it. Well, actually, I think I did sing in it a little bit. Woo, that was fun. Next up, I am going to play Rolling in the Deep by Adele from her Adele 21 album. Adele's Rolling in the Deep. Next is Rumor Has It by